Hello, can anyone hear me? Type in the chat if anyone can hear me. Please, if you can. Hello, Jacob. Nice to see you. Um, what I am gonna do is I am going to show some videos of what KP heard the night before Sebastian Rogers went missing. So, hi Liz, nice to see you. So I'm gonna share my screen and then I'm gonna get right into it. So just give me a quick second. Share screen. Okay. I'm just gonna take off. I'm just gonna take my welcome thing off. There you go. So here is the show. Here's the YouTube video.
On the morning of February 26, 2024, Katie Proudfoot went to wake up her 15-year-old son, Sebastian Rogers, for school. But when she entered his room, his bed was empty. She searched the rest of the house for him, but he was nowhere to be found. Katie called the police, and a large-scale search began immediately. As hours turned into days, the search intensified, with hundreds of people combing the area near the family's home in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Despite these efforts, no trace of Sebastian has ever been found. It's been 9 months since Sebastian vanished, and investigators are still searching for him. Hey everyone, welcome back to Detective Perspective. My name is Derek Lavasser. I'm a licensed private investigator and former police detective. Each week I'll be covering an unsolved case in story format. I'll then give you my perspective on the investigation and provide contact information for the individuals or organizations connected to the case so that if you have any tips, you can contact them directly and maybe you can help solve a case. So if you're someone who's interested in true crime, specifically unsolved cases, and you would like to hear my opinion on those investigations, please consider subscribing whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever platform you use. Okay, so Sebastian Rogers. Some of you may know this case. A few of you recommended that I cover it. So here I am. And I want to tell you right from the jump that Haley did the research on this. And when she gave me the script, I started researching it. And she told me right up front that there's been a lot of misreporting, a lot of drama, a lot of rumors surrounding this case. So I'm going to do my best just to focus on the facts and keep my number one priority for all these cases in mind, which is to cover the case expose it to people who may not know about it yet. And if there's something that's said during my episode that triggers someone, or maybe they think of something that could be of value, they have the information to contact the right people, because we want to solve these cases. And if we're not talking about them, then the chances of that decrease. And as you will see with a lot of the cases that I cover, by the time I get to them, the media coverage on these particular investigations has subsided. And also, I try to incentivize people to come forward by letting them know when there's rewards. And I will tell you, in this case, there's a large reward, a lot of money. So if it's not enough to just do the right thing, maybe there's someone out there who's financially incentivized. And if that's the case, I don't really care what it takes. As long as we bring Sebastian home, that's all that counts. So like I said, I'm going to stick to the facts as I know them. Law enforcement has been very tight-lipped about this case. So we're going to go over everything we can. There's a really interesting video to break down. I'll give my final thoughts at the end.
And I'm also going to drop my link in the chat as well. So, my PayPal link, if anyone is willing to donate, if anyone is wanting to donate, is wanting to help donate, it's very much appreciated, but you do not have to at all. It's not expected. So here's my PayPal link. And also here is my other channel that will be used for my Hangout channel. Just 1 second. Here we go.
And we'll see if anybody comes forward. So with that all out of the way, let's dive into this week's case. Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers was born on December 7th, 2008 to parents Katie and Seth. Now, Katie and Seth didn't stay together, and Katie later married Chris Proudfoot. And for the most part, Sebastian lived with his mom and stepdad in the Stafford Court neighborhood in Hendersonville, Tennessee, a town just outside of Nashville. He also maintained a relationship with his father, who lived about an hour away in Clarksville. As a child, Sebastian was diagnosed with autism. A former teacher told News Channel 5, quote, "He is high functioning. He has a great sense of humor. He loves to..."
Yes, Liz, that's, in my opinion, that could be true, but also he could have been brought somewhere to be hidden by KP and CP, which they are not being honest.
Laugh. He's a jokester. He's super smart. His dad further described him as loving and inquisitive with a big heart. Sebastian had many interests. He loved animals, fishing, dancing, and swimming. He enjoys spending time outdoors, especially on playgrounds. He is also a big fan of Minecraft and is obsessed with the color green. In December of 2023, Sebastian turned 15 years old and spent Christmas break with his father in Clarksville. And by the end of 2024, he was back at his mom's and ready to return to Beach High School, where he was a student. At around 6 a.m. on February 26th, Katie went to wake up Sebastian for school and realized he wasn't in his bed. She searched the house but found no signs of him. And it's important to note that the doors were locked and his phone, medication, Nintendo, and all of his shoes were still there. The only thing that seemed to be missing was a flashlight Sebastian, quote, often played with. Katie checked outside but didn't see him, so she called her husband Chris, who was over 3 hours away working in Memphis. Together, they decided to contact the police. According to News Nation, Katie told officers she had last seen Sebastian the night before when he went to bed at 9 p.m. Around an hour later, she heard a thud come from his room, so she called out to him, telling him to keep it down, and he responded. And after he responded, she told him to go to sleep. That was the last time she ever talked to her son. Katie explained that she went to bed at midnight and woke up 6 hours later to find him gone. She told police that Sebastian has high-functioning autism and has no history of running away. She described him as a, quote, very smart gamer who is not mischievous by any means. After hearing from Katie, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, also known as the TBI, was contacted and an endangered child alert was issued at 11:17 a.m. The alert stated that Sebastian was last seen wearing a black sweatshirt, black sweatpants, and glasses. News Nation reported that more than 200 searchers were deployed to look for Sebastian. The search included canine units, mounted officers, drones, and helicopters. Chris later told Nancy Grace about these searches, stating, quote, there were 5 dogs that started the scent search, and then after that, there have been dogs from all over the country that have come in and done searches and had scent hits in various locations. A certain percentage of them tend to go to the same spot, which would have been a nearby retention pond. Now, the retention pond was only knee-deep, but it was drained during the search with no evidence of Sebastian being found, which I would say is a good thing. Chris went on to say that tracking dogs also picked up Sebastian's scent around the house, but no cadaver dogs indicated any findings. I do think it's worth noting that most media outlets reported no scent trails for Sebastian were ever discovered, so it's unclear what the truth is here. I'm only reporting what we were able to find, but just to put it out there and be transparent, there are reports.
I believe KP was looking for someone earnestly at the TRH restaurant. She is so very obvious. Maybe meeting someone to follow her vehicle and transfer Sebastian to another vehicle, and as easy he is gone. Yes, that's what I'm thinking as well, was that she could have either dropped him off somewhere, or, in my opinion, also her and CP made him go with CP's parents or in a specialized home.
It's out there that say no scents were ever found relating to Sebastian and that it was just dead ends everywhere. Now, Chris obviously has a different opinion, and that's why I wanted to include it, because he was boots on the ground, and I would think that he would know. At 4:35 p.m. on the day Sebastian was reported missing, the TBI sent out a tweet asking residents near Beach High School and along Long Hollow Pike to check their outbuildings, garages, and cars. They feared Sebastian might be using one of these locations as a hiding place. News Nation reported that the urgency of the search was increasing due to colder temperatures expected to move into the area. Authorities were unsure if Sebastian was properly dressed for the weather, which obviously heightened their concerns. The following afternoon at 3:25 p.m., authorities issued an Amber Alert for Sebastian, and officials said that the decision to upgrade the alert was, quote, based on additional investigative information developed during the search. I know some of you are going to be questioning why they didn't just issue an Amber Alert right from the start. Well, as I mentioned, they did issue the endangered child alert, which is appropriate because at that point, they don't know if he's just hiding under a car or at a friend's house or behind a shed. But once they start doing that initial search and they realize he's not in the immediate area and nobody has seen him, although they have never come out publicly and said foul play is involved, it now becomes more likely. And those parameters are now met where you feel that this person could have been abducted, and that's why the Amber Alert was issued. And I think it was done relatively fast. So I do get on some agencies for their lack of enthusiasm with getting these alerts out there, but I think the way they progressed through the alerts, it's the right call. It's fine with me. I don't have an issue with it. After the Amber Alert was issued, search efforts continued, and the police tried everything they could think of to find Sebastian, even playing his favorite song, Eye of a Tiger, hoping it might draw him out. Investigators also urged residents to check their security and doorbell cameras for any footage of Sebastian, and obviously many people did, but as far as we can tell, there were no confirmed sightings ever reported. By the end of the day, on February 27th, searchers had covered more than 2,000 miles on foot, but there was still no sign of Sebastian anywhere. At this point, Sebastian's family had not spoken to the media, leading to many questions from the public. On February 28th, the TBI issued a statement explaining the family's decision to remain private. The statement read in part, quote, "We have been requested by the family to let local media know that they are not in a position to speak or be available to the media at this time. We, the TBI, have told them that while we would relay their message, it would be the decision of the individual media outlets and reporters to proceed as they see fit." I found this statement very interesting, and I'm interested to hear what you guys think as well, because we've had statements from law enforcement before on behalf of the family, and usually they ask straight up, "We'd like you to respect the privacy of the family during this difficult time." Didn't seem like they were doing that. It seemed more like they were saying, "Hey, listen, we're coming out here. We're just the messenger."
The mob crew showed a video at the Texas Roadhouse restaurant about outside KP looked as if she was meeting with a person in a green hoodie right next to her vehicle when she came out with Sebastian. Yes. My theory with the green hoodie, we're gonna be looking into that tomorrow. I have some speculations about that as well. We're gonna look into that tomorrow, plus the flashlight theory.
We may not necessarily agree with this decision, and ultimately, although we're relaying this message, reporters, journalists, if you want to go after them and you want to pressure them, we can't stop you. Maybe I'm looking too deep into it. Maybe I'm reading too much in between the lines, but I think they could have been a lot more aggressive and to the point with their statement by saying, "Hey, we want you to leave them alone." And although there's nothing legally they can do if journalists decide not to, they can still show a position of authority and highly recommend, highly suggest that the family be left alone, at least for the immediate future. And that's not what I got from this statement. Now, as far as Katie, Chris, and Seth's decision not to speak to the media, I don't really have a problem with it. What are they really supposed to say? They know, if they have half a brain, that the media and people in the community are at least going to entertain the question, could they be responsible for whatever happened to Sebastian? Katie was the last person with him, and we have to remember that the account of her last interaction with Sebastian is from her and can't really be corroborated or confirmed. So we're just going off her word, and you would love to believe the mother of the victim, but we know historically that's not always the case. Sometimes the person telling you the narrative is actually the person responsible. So it's an organic and natural question for everyone to have, including investigators. So the only thing that Katie, Chris, and Seth are going to do at this point is say something that can be picked apart or misspeak and say something that is interpreted incorrectly and makes them look more guilty. So I think the best decision at this point is to stay quiet. But I will tell you, they didn't stay quiet for long, and we're going to talk about it right after this break. Notice how the days are getting shorter, but your to-do list aren't? That means you don't have a lot of time for the other stuff like cooking, so you can power through your busy days with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. From breakfast to dinner and anything in between, Factor has easy, nutritious options to keep you fueled and feeling your best. Whether you like routine or enjoy mixing things up, Factor has you covered. 45 delicious meals every week and over 60 additional convenience options you can add to your box, like keto cookies, pressed juices, and smooth active at factormeals.com/50detective to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. All right, we're back. Before break, I mentioned that initially the family decided not to speak to the media, but that didn't last long because March 3rd, Katie and Chris spoke to the podcast Duchess about Sebastian's disappearance, and this was their first interview with the media. And in that interview, they explained that Sebastian was, quote, 15 in age and body, but his mind has not caught up with his body. They also shared that Sebastian had no access to social media and that his school friends had already been interviewed by authorities. Katie and Chris added that Sebastian didn't have a sense of money, had never ridden the bus, and didn't like getting dirty. So these are all things you have to think about when you discuss the potential of him running away on his own, right? He wouldn't understand the value of money. He had never taken public transportation on his own. And as I said at the top of the episode, all his shoes were accounted for. So for him to leave the house, he would have had to have left barefoot or in socks. So based on what they know of him, that's not something he would do. When they were asked what they thought happened, Katie and Chris said they believed that Sebastian must have walked away from the house sometime during the night. On March 4th, 1 week after Sebastian disappeared, the police held a press conference to provide an update. They said there were, quote, no leads and no details to indicate that Sebastian is not alive. Obviously, that's a good thing. Police also announced that the ground search would be scaled back while the investigation continued. They stated, quote, this does not diminish our commitment to finding Sebastian. This is simply us transitioning from a ground search to an investigative side. And this is just a reality of what happens in these types of cases. Now, I know some of you won't like what I'm about to say, but the reality is police departments aren't any different than any other organization that has to think about staffing and resources. So once leadership feels like every area where Sebastian could have been has been searched and there's not even evidence that he could have been there, then at some point you have to reallocate staffing and resources to not only.
And as well, for when KP said that, Sebastian went missing the next day, she specifically said her own words that there were 2 dogs that were barking. There was not 2 dogs that were barking. There was only 1 dog that barked. And Cap, I will explain after, okay?
Only other cases, because think about it, there's also other crime going on concurrently at the same time, but also put those people that you do have, whatever officers you do have, in positions where they can make a difference. You don't want them searching areas just for the optics of it. You want them contributing in a productive way. So that may be taking an officer off the search and putting him on search warrants of particular houses. That may be taking an officer off the search and putting them on getting affidavits for any cell phone data that you want. That may be bringing multiple detectives in to start conducting interviews. These are all things that it's tough to do at the same time. So this, as they mentioned, is transitioning from that search capacity to the investigative capacity, where now they're trying to explore other alternatives that may lead to some new evidence that may help find Sebastian. So I don't have a problem with it. This needs to happen. It's never an easy thing to come out and say that the search is being pulled back. Everyone looks at that in a negative light. And I see where you're coming from, because you're hoping that one day they just make an announcement and they find Sebastian hiding somewhere. So when that doesn't happen, it's a punch to the gut. And I get it. But the ultimate goal is still the same. They got to find Sebastian. They got to reallocate the staffing and resources to areas where that is going to be the most advantageous to the overall investigation. And that's what they're doing here. So I'm on board with it. Now, that same day that law enforcement announced they were pulling back on the ground search, Sebastian's father, Seth, sat down with Fox 17 for an exclusive interview. And he said Sebastian was his whole life and he'd do anything to bring him home. He shared that if he could say one thing to Sebastian, it would be, quote, I miss you, bud. I'm waiting. I want to hear from you. Katie and Chris also spoke to the media about Sebastian's disappearance. And during their interview, Katie shared this message for her son. We love you so much and we want you to come home. And you're not in trouble. I just want my baby to be okay. A few days later, on March 7th, the police searched a landfill in White Plains, Kentucky, which is where the trash from Sebastian's neighborhood was taken. Now, the police did come out and say that the search was just a precaution. No specific evidence had led them to the site. And after hours of searching, as far as we can tell, there was nothing of value located, so the investigation continued on. So up to this point, as you can see, law enforcement is just kind of going through the leads, just checking them off one by one. And by them going to this trash site, if they're telling the truth, it's just another thing that they're checking off the list to make sure that they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's. And they haven't really said much publicly about the case or what direction they're going in. And that's because it's new and they don't want to give anybody a heads up on what direction they're going in or who they could be looking at. But on March 14th, that all changed because a news outlet, WTVF, obtained surveillance footage showing activity in the backyard common area of Sebastian's home at around 3 a.m. on the night he disappeared. The area had no streetlights and was pitch black, but the video captured two specks of light moving around. WTVF speculated that the lights could have been from two people walking around with flashlights. So the footage I'm about to play is from...
Yes, I am. I'm just showing the video.
News Channel 5, and I'm going to describe the footage for anyone who's listening on audio, but if you're up on YouTube, you're going to see it yourself right now and come to your own conclusions. If it's something different than what I'm saying, please let me know down in the comments. Okay, so you see the one subject on the right here. You got something up in the left. I don't know what that is, but then subject 2 is going to pop up for a second. There it is, and then it goes away. And now you have this overview shot of Sebastian's home. This kind of gives you an idea of what it looked like when it was, during the day. So now back to this, you see subject 1. Again, I don't know what the top left is, that light there. There's subject 2. You see it come into the photo, goes away. But then what you're going to see, it kind of gets lost in maybe some bushes or something like that. There's a close-up of subject 1. And then you have subject 2 walking towards subject 1.
Hello, Ryan.
They both go off frame. However, then you just see one subject coming back, running through the brushes again, but at a faster rate, a much faster rate. So there's the video, and I don't want to look too deep into it, but it's really hard not to, especially when you think about some of the factors that we do know. We're talking about a window of 6 hours. 3 o'clock in the morning would be right in that window of opportunity. How many people are walking around at 3 a.m. and happen to be in the backyard of the person who's currently missing? And if that's not enough, you also have the fact that the parents have said he liked playing with this certain flashlight that was missing. That's a lot of coincidences. So if you take this video and you think that it is Sebastian, what it looks like is you have one person who's potentially Sebastian or maybe the other, and the two subjects come together with their flashlights. They go out of frame, and they're moving slow that entire time. But when they go out of frame, they're gone for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, one of the flashlights is seen moving at a rapid rate across the screen, almost as if they're fleeing the area. That's not good. Again, I don't want to go too deep into it. It's not good that you see two people going one way and only one person coming back. However, I don't want to speculate too much. There's a lot that you could extrapolate from this video, but it would be building a house on a shitty foundation, because the reality is we don't know what we're looking at. Now, if you ask me, I think we're looking at two people holding a lantern or a flashlight. That's my opinion. However, the TBI did not care to share their opinions, and they released a statement. I can tell you they were not happy with WTVF, not only for sharing the footage, but also speculating on what it could be. So in this statement, they warned against sharing surveillance videos online, explaining that the footage could be misinterpreted. They also added that nothing gathered from home or business surveillance systems had been, quote, determined to be significant, and emphasized that there was no evidence of criminal activity in Sebastian's disappearance. They ended their statement by saying the family was cooperating fully with the investigation. And after I read that, my mind was in a pretzel, because now maybe I'm looking too deep into it, but I'm asking myself, do they know what this video footage is? And is it not what I think? But then I go back and I kind of debate myself and I'm like, well, if it wasn't of value, why wouldn't they just come out and say what it was so we would stop talking about it? If I had to guess, just based on my background, I think it is
Yes, Cap, it is.
of value. And I think they were just pissed off that it got out there because now one of their cards have been shown. That's one less tool they have in the toolbox to use later. And that was information they wanted to keep in house. And it's very possible that they're putting out this statement just to potentially throw people off, which is not a bad tactic. I might do a similar thing, maybe try to downplay it in a vague statement without completely discrediting it, because maybe later it'll become a critical piece of evidence. But yeah, where I sit right now, the video to me is exactly what it looks like. Two people holding flashlights. They come together, they go out of frame, only one comes back. What we can make of that, your guess is as good as mine. Now, around a week after that footage was released, Seth organized a search of the Natchez Trace State Park, which is approximately 100 miles from Hendersonville, and this was after receiving a tip suggesting the family should check the area, but unfortunately, nothing of value was found. However, that didn't discourage Seth because he continued hosting searches and passing out flyers. He told News 2, quote, "I just want to find my son. I'm not going to give up hope." At the end of March, Katie and Chris spoke with Nancy Grace about the status of the case, and during the interview, they revealed that they were no longer staying in Hendersonville and had relocated to an RV out of town. Chris explained that this move was due to him going back to work. Nancy asked Katie if she was concerned about being away while the search for Sebastian continued, and Katie responded, quote, "Absolutely, my son could be anywhere, and we're looking everywhere and anywhere." When asked what she thought had happened to Sebastian, Katie said, quote, "I think it's possible someone has my son. I feel like if he had been close to the house or walked off, we would have found him by now with as many people as we had searching." Katie told Nancy that she was asked to take a polygraph, so she did, and she passed. And Chris said that since he was out of town when Sebastian disappeared, he wasn't asked to take a polygraph, but he said he'd be more than willing to do so if they wanted him to. Katie then claimed that.
And that's the thing. Yes. It could be related, Liz. But all we can do is speculate, right? But like we can't say for sure if it's related somehow. But yes, for sure. You are right. You could be right.
Both she and Chris had both been cleared by law enforcement. However, as far as I can tell, the police have never publicly cleared anyone. In fact, just days after this interview took place, police told WTVF that no one has been cleared. They also expressed frustration with online rumors and speculation, saying it did nothing to help the case. And I can see where the frustration is coming from. Just from our research on this case, you can find rumors and speculation on Facebook and Reddit, and people are presenting their theories as fact. And this type of behavior can severely hinder a case, especially a newer one like this, where law enforcement is keeping everything close to the chest and they're being very careful about what is released and when it's released. There may be some strategy behind that. So if you have people putting misinformation out there and presenting it as fact, and for some unfortunate reason it gains traction, it can cause the community to go in a specific direction that has nothing to do with what needs to be investigated. It can also create a public outcry that's unsubstantiated. For example, based on what's being put out online on Reddit or Facebook, you could have a group of people going after someone who has nothing to do with the crime. And we know that was going on here in this case, because even though they didn't say it, I believe personally that Katie and Chris moved partially because of the backlash they were getting. And that's not just me pulling it out of thin air. She later told Fox News, quote, "We are posting flyers every direction we can, but at the same time, there were quite a bit of people that were sending some very threatening and hateful messages to us. They're following us. They're driving past our house at all hours of the day or night, disturbing the neighborhood. And even the neighborhood is very upset and concerned. They're worried about their safety at this point." She finished off by saying that she felt leaving the neighborhood would help calm things down. And that's unfortunate, because there's a real possibility she had nothing to do with Sebastian's disappearance. I'm not clearing her completely. I'm in no position to do so. But based on the little bit of video we do have, is it possible that Sebastian met someone outside that wasn't Katie? Of course it is. So to have these people so convinced that she's responsible for Sebastian's disappearance, it's unfair. And she may very well be a victim at this point as well. Now, if information comes out that suggests otherwise, I'll be the first to hop on it. But we're not there yet. And we have to treat everyone innocent until proven guilty. And as of right now, there has been nothing incriminating about Katie. We're going to take our last break. We'll be right back. Your nighttime bedroom temperature has a huge impact on your sleep quality. If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA and use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. And here's a gross fact that I'm sure none of you want to know. Traditional Bed Sheet for sponsoring this episode. All right, we're back and we're going to continue with the next significant update, which came on April 2nd when the police held a press conference. They shared that during the first week of the investigation, they obtained multiple search warrants, including one for Sebastian's home. According to WKRN, cell phone data was also analyzed, and all available digital evidence, including data from Sebastian's Nintendo, was searched and documented. Additionally, with the help of the FBI, all vehicles that were in the area at or around the time of Sebastian's disappearance had been identified and accounted for. And that's all we're going to hear about that. Because more than likely, a call was made and the FBI deployed some science and technology that might be used for other things like counterterrorism, things of that nature, where they were able to deploy, I would assume, some type of satellite imagery, plate readers, things of that nature. And they feel confident with the information that was gathered. Now, will we know those details? Probably not. Not unless it goes to an affidavit and then an arrest. And the reason being is we don't want to disclose all the tools we have at our disposal. That would just give the advantage to the bad guy where they can try and circumvent it. So the technology was used. It was successful in what it was supposed to do. And that's all you're going to hear about it. Now, the police emphasized that they were continuing to work tirelessly, focusing on, quote, good old-fashioned police work. They were interviewing and re-interviewing individuals, checking leads, and then rechecking them again. And that's what I like to hear. It's easy to get caught up and think you are the best at what you do. You got to put your egos aside, even though you think you checked every area, even though you think you asked all the important questions. Let someone else look at it. Let them analyze your work. Let them critique your work. And see if they come up with something different. There's nothing wrong with that. In many cases, they will find something that you missed, not because you're bad at what you do, but you're juggling a lot of balls there. And you have to make sure that you have someone backing you up, double checking your work to make sure that as you move forward, nothing's been missed. This is the way to do it. I know they're saying it. I hope they're following through with it. So even though law enforcement said they were doing their job, Seth wanted to make sure that all angles were being covered. So in mid-April, he hired private investigator Heather Cohen to assist in the search for Sebastian. And together they spoke to News Nation, and Heather stated that she believes Sebastian's disappearance is the result of a, quote, domino effect of events. She pointed to what she described as, quote, a lot of turmoil surrounding Sebastian, and highlighted December 2023 and January 2024 as key months investigators should examine. She also mentioned that the Tennessee Department of Children's Services had previously been referred to the Proudfoot home. However, she noted that the case has been closed and the file was restricted, leaving details unclear. She also referenced, quote, some talk about Chris leaving Katie, calling it, quote, trouble in paradise. Seth told News Nation that he has, quote, mixed feelings about whether Sebastian was safe at his mother's house. He said, quote, I've heard some things. He also revealed that Katie and Chris hadn't spoken to him for 2 weeks, which he felt meant they didn't share the same goal of finding Sebastian. Seth expressed confusion over the circumstances of Sebastian's disappearance, saying, quote, it doesn't make a lot of sense. He explained that Sebastian didn't like going barefoot after a childhood incident,
No, I'm not.
so leaving the house without shoes didn't seem likely, not to mention the fact that he left behind his phone and his Nintendo. The police also spoke to News Nation and reiterated that while there was no evidence of foul play, they were not ruling anything out, and they made it abundantly clear again that Katie and Chris had been cooperative throughout the entire investigation. After all these interviews, the search for Sebastian continued, but the media coverage, as it usually does, began to slow down. In mid-May, Seth publicly called for the FBI to take over the investigation into Sebastian's disappearance. He told News Nation, quote, "I don't want my son to become a cold case. The way I'm seeing things now, it'll be a cold case." By late August, more than 6 months had passed since Sebastian went missing. At that time, the FBI announced a $50,000 reward for information leading to Sebastian's safe return or the arrest and conviction of those responsible for his disappearance. In September, Dwayne Chapman, also known as Dog the Bounty Hunter, joined Seth in the search for Sebastian. Chapman followed leads and doubled the FBI's reward, raising it up to $100,000. He told the media that he believed increasing the reward would bring them closer to finding the answers they were looking for. Over the following months, the investigation continued. His parents remained vocal in the media, but the police were tight-lipped, revealing little to no information. As of this recording, the investigation into Sebastian's case is still very active. The most recent update was released on November 22nd, when the reward for information increased to $200,000. Seth spoke to News 2 at that time, expressing hope that Sebastian would soon be found. He noted that on December 7th, 2024, Sebastian will turn 16 years old. Seth said he hopes Sebastian will be home before then because he doesn't want to miss any more moments without his son. All right, let's get into the perspective, and I want to elaborate on some of the things I said, dive into the video a little bit more. What does it mean? But this isn't going to be that long because this is a new case, and this is more a call to action. I want to get through this, get you the information you need, and hopefully someone listening or watching this episode comes forward. So the first thing I want to address, the elephant in the room. Could Katie be responsible? Yeah, she could be. I think even she would acknowledge that that's a possibility, especially when you think about the two lights, that if those two lights are beings, one light could be Sebastian, one light could be Katie. I do want to say that this isn't a case where it could be an infant that was unable to take care of themselves and needed constant parental supervision, and maybe the lack thereof resulted in a death. I don't think that's what we're looking at here. Sebastian was capable of taking care of himself. So unless she deliberately did something to him, I don't see that being the case. And I would then have to know what the motive was. Sebastian was living with her, but he also had the ability to live with his father. Doesn't appear that he was being a nuisance or was being combative. Everyone loved him. He was doing good. He was going to school. What could have happened that would have changed all that? I'm not seeing anything. That doesn't mean there's not something there. I don't have access to all the records, but on the surface, I don't think that Katie's the prime person of interest here. I think there's a lot of circumstances at play here that would suggest another theory, which I want to get into now. Yes, Sebastian was extremely intelligent, but as a someone who has autism, even though they're high functioning, they are sometimes susceptible to not picking up on social cues. I know this. I have people who are autistic in my own family, and it's possible that someone who presented themselves as a friendly was actually a foe. And it could have been just through text or through just some quick interactions where Sebastian thought this person wanted one thing when in reality they wanted something else. So we could have a scenario where Sebastian for Katie to go to sleep with the intent on meeting up with this person. And I'll even go as far as saying this. I keep saying this person had, some type of malicious intention. It's also possible it was someone who was a friend or someone who was just hanging around and having fun with Sebastian. And maybe something happened while they were out playing around, could have been an accident. And this person got spooked, felt responsible, took off, and has never come forward. That is one angle. The other angle is this person, like we were originally saying, did have some type of nefarious intention, was able to get Sebastian out of the house, brought him.
That very well could be possible, Liz, and we never know. Again, it's all speculation. We don't know for sure, but I think I have a pretty good idea of who else could be involved, but we're going to touch base on more tomorrow. I'm just showing this video tonight, and then we're going to talk a little bit after that.
Somewhere, and based on just the video, it seems like whatever happened to Sebastian happened relatively soon after they went out of frame. I say that because only one subject is seen running back across the camera. That's what happens when you start to analyze this video, right? Because you could push back on me and say, well, how do we know that the two people went off camera and the person we see running back this way isn't Sebastian? Maybe they're playing manhunt, hide and go seek, whatever you want to call it. Different generations call it different things, where they could have been out there playing around and maybe Sebastian runs off in the opposite direction, loses his sense of direction, loses his orientation, and keeps running and gets to a point where he falls, gets hurt, continues down into something where he can't be seen. Again, not likely. At this point, someone should have spotted him or a dog should have picked up on his scent. That's not the case. So a lot of questions, a lot of variables here. If I'm looking at this, and I think investigators are probably looking at it this way as well, if that camera footage is what we think it is, and I know they downplayed it, but if it's what we think it is, you have Sebastian and you have the person responsible for his disappearance. And that could be a variety of people. I'll even throw out there, just for the sake of this conversation, without knowing the details, which this could be quickly ruled out, could Seth have been in the area? Was Seth down in that location based on his GPS data from his cell phone, his vehicle data? I don't have that information. That is something that as a detective, I would be going down the list and ruling them out one by one. We can also add Chris to that list. I know he was in Memphis, according to what I said tonight. That's probably the case. That would need to be verified as well. Once we've done all that, and we know the only person that was in that house and in that vicinity that's connected to Sebastian was Katie, then you start there. Now I would want to explore Sebastian's life. I know he didn't have social media, but they said he was a gamer. And I don't know what games he was playing. They mentioned Nintendo numerous times, although 2024, Nintendo doesn't seem like the optimal unit to be using, but I do wonder if any of the games he was playing, whether it was on Nintendo or on some other gaming system or on a computer, did any of those games have a community element to it where you could interact with other gamers who are currently playing the game? I know there's games as simple as Roblox on your phone where you're playing the game, but yet you're also interacting with other people. Could he have been interacting with someone who was local, who set up a meet time for them to go out and play manhunt or play with flashlights or go on a little, like, adventure, a mission? What could have gotten him out of the house? Someone would have had to have access to him. And the only way I'm seeing right now would be by phone or through the gaming system. And if they contacted him through phone, we would have someone by now. They've gone through that phone with a fine-tooth comb. They can see all his data. They would know his search history, who he's communicating with, who his contacts are, and what different search history he had going on in there. So I don't see that as an angle. The gaming system is something I want to explore. But I do think that there's someone in this community, probably multiple people, who know something and maybe haven't come forward yet. I am a little concerned that at this point, there has been no sightings of him on camera. You've seen the overhead view of that area. It's a nice community. And you would think that most of them have some type of surveillance system, some type of doorbell camera, and no one picked him up. Not one camera. As far as we know, nothing. It doesn't leave a lot of options. It means he went towards the woods, and you have to ask the question, who'd he go with and where are they now? As far as where I sit, there is a silver lining here, and it's a morbid way of looking at things, but the fact that we don't have evidence that Sebastian has been hurt or killed is a win. As long as there's no evidence of him being injured out in the woods, there's a potential that he's not there and he's currently residing with someone. Obviously, it's not under the right circumstances, but the best case scenario is that he's still alive and he's okay. He may be being held against his will, or he may believe that he has the freedom to leave when he really doesn't. Either way, someone needs to come forward. Something happened in that immediate area. Someone who had seen him in the past, who had known who he was, who had known the time that they could get access to him or what to say to get him to come out of the house, possibly barefoot. This is someone who had some type of interaction with him before. And that's going off the assumption that this doesn't involve a family member or friend, because in that case, they would have immediate access to him and they would also know what to say to incentivize him to go outside. And the final scenario, which I don't personally put a lot of stock in, is that he ran off on his own and maybe he planned on coming back, but he got hurt or injured and wasn't able to do so. But that doesn't make a lot of sense to me for a variety of reasons, which we talked about in the episode. No shoes, no phone, and most importantly, that video in his backyard, it clearly looks like two people. So unless there's UFOs in his backyard, or unless there's some type of anomaly with that camera that created this illusion, almost like you'd see orbs in a photo, then those are two people. And I think the movements of those little white dots are highly suggestive that they're human beings holding some type of illuminated device, i.e. a flashlight or a lantern. So where does that leave us? We need someone to come forward. There's a $200 reward. If you have information that can help solve this case, now is the time to do something about it. I'm sure if you come forward and you're not directly involved, you can remain anonymous. And if this turns out that you're right and it leads to the location of Sebastian, or it results in the arrest of the person responsible for Sebastian's disappearance, at minimum, if doing the right thing isn't enough for you, you can make a lot of money. So just to recap, 15-year-old Sebastian Rogers was last seen on February 26, 2024 in the area of Stafford Court in Hendersonville, Tennessee. He was wearing a black sweatshirt, black sweatpants, and black square-framed glasses. At the time of his disappearance, Sebastian, who was a white male, was approximately 5 foot 5 inches tall, 120 pounds, with sandy hair and brown eyes. If you have information concerning the whereabouts of Sebastian, please contact the Sumner County Sheriff's Office at 615-451-3838, or you can contact the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation at 1-800-TBI-FIND. And as I mentioned, there is a reward available. 200 grand could be yours if you help solve this case. And as always, my final words go out to Seth and Katie, and also Chris. I know you're hurting right now. I know you're doing everything you can to help find your son. And I'm hoping that this little show here does something to contribute to that, to keep sharing Sebastian's story, to make sure that the exposure and the light stays on his case. I know with all these tragedies that happen every single day, that's getting harder and harder to do. But we're here. We're going to do our part now. We're rooting for you guys. And I hope that there's an update in this case soon. And as it was mentioned, December 7th, it's coming up fast. Sebastian's going to be 16 years old. Let's bring him home. I hope we do that. That's going to do it for me, guys. Everyone stay safe out there. I'll see you soon.
So, that's basically a part of the case, but we still have to look into other parts of the puzzles of what else happened. So far, what is everyone's thoughts on this? On Sebastian's case? You think he's still alive? Okay. Well, that could be true. We don't know, but that very well could be true. I mean, I hope he is alive as well, but we just have to keep on praying. And hopefully he gets found. Because none of us know for sure. And if he doesn't get found, then yeah, that's what lots of people are thinking as well. That maybe he got put in a home under a different name, which very well could be possible, but we still have to wait for more evidence and stuff, right? I mean, I hope he's still alive as well, but we don't know. And the fact that there's no scent or any evidence is it just blows my mind. Like, in my opinion, there has to be some sort of evidence, some sort of sense they could pick up, which I do not think they're finding the right spots to look. As well, everyone, please click the thumbs up for me if you can. That would be very much appreciated. And also share my channel out to wherever you can to help me get more subscribers. That would also be very much appreciated. As well, I'm gonna drop a couple links again. Um, if you would be if you would like to donate, it's not expected at all, but it's very much appreciated. Here's my PayPal link, and also here is my um here is my um uh as well, here is my other link to my Ghost Boy channel, which will be used as a hangout channel. And I also want to say thank you to my subscribers so far for staying with me and supporting me through this. Any help is much appreciated with sharing my link out, and to help me gain more subscribers. And also Friday we're just going to do a hangout stream a chill stream if that's okay, if that's all right with everyone. If everyone wants to do a chill stream, let me know in the chat. Put a one in the chat if you guys just want to do a chill stream. Put a one in the chat on for Friday. Okay. Anyone else? Oh, and also, I appreciate that, Liz. Thank you. And also, I want to drop a couple other channels in the chat. If you can, go follow Stormy's these 2 days stream. I mean, her channel. She's a very good channel. And also, here's another channel I want to drop in the chat. As well, here is a few more channels. So there's a few channels you guys can go follow. They're really good channels. And I wanted to say thank you to my subscribers and to the whole chat for coming and watching. Even if people were watching just from the bushes, I really appreciate it. And we're going to close out for today and say peace. Have an excellent night, everyone, and we will see each other tomorrow. Good night, y'all.